If you want to understand true psychological torture, you don't look at a human locked in a cage, you look at a Kryptonian under a yellow sun. When people talk about the ultimate superpower, they usually point to the same heavy hitters. They look at Omni-Man, Homelander, or Superman. They think having that kind of power, being completely untouchable, is the ultimate cheat code to the universe. Everyone thinks the greatest lie Clark Kent ever told was putting on a pair of glasses. They think the lie is the clumsy reporter routine. They think being a god is the ultimate freedom. It isn't. It's a 24/7 life sentence because the exact same powers that make him a savior are biologically designed to break his mind. Let's start with the most basic human coping mechanism, escaping a bad day. When Batman gets his ribs shattered by Bane, he can pop a painkiller, pass out in the Batcave, and let his body shut down. When John Constantine has a traumatic run-in with a demon, he goes to the pub and drinks until he forgets his own name. When the Flash pushes himself too hard, his accelerated metabolism still forces him to crash and sleep. Humans, mutants, and metahumans all have a built-in escape hatch. We can shut our brains off. We can numb the trauma. But Kryptonians? Under a yellow sun, their biology is literally too perfect to allow for any psychological relief. Superman doesn't need to sleep. His cells process toxins so fast that he physically cannot get drunk. His brain is a supercomputer that records every single failure in perfect 8K resolution. Imagine the worst day of your life. Maybe you failed to save someone from a collapsing bridge. Maybe Doomsday just leveled a city block and you were 3 seconds too late. You can't sleep it off. You can't numb the trauma with a drink. You are awake, fully conscious and hyper-aware of every single failure 24/7 with zero chemical escape. Your own perfect health becomes a biological cage. If you want proof of how desperate he is for an escape, look at the legendary comic storyline for the man who has everything. The villain Mongol infects Superman with an alien plant called the Black Mercy. The plant paralyzes you, but feeds your brain a perfectly realistic dream of your deepest desire. For Superman, his deepest desire wasn't ruling the Earth. It wasn't ultimate power. His dream was just living a normal, quiet life on Krypton without the burden of being a god. He finally had an escape. He was finally asleep. And when Batman and Wonder Woman ripped that plant off his chest and woke him up, Superman didn't thank them. He was so enraged by being forced back into his waking nightmare that he nearly beat Mongol to death with his bare hands, because waking up meant returning to the noise. And as exhausting as never being able to sleep is, that is absolutely nothing compared to what he has to listen to while he's awake. If you thought never sleeping was bad, welcome to the absolute worst part of being Superman, the mathematics of super hearing. People think having super senses means you can eavesdrop on Lex Luthor or hear a sniper locking a rifle a mile away. They forget that it doesn't come with a mute button. In the comics, writers touch on this all the time. Right now, while Clark is just trying to buy a coffee in Metropolis, he hears every single car crash, every gunshot, and every person begging for help across the entire planet simultaneously. There are 8 billion people on Earth, and Superman is fast, but he cannot be everywhere at once. Every single time he swoops in to save a falling helicopter, he is actively listening to thousands of other people die in that exact same second. He hears their heartbeats stop. He hears their final breaths. He has to consciously choose to ignore them just to function. Think about the psychological toll of triage on a global scale. If he saves 99.9% of the people in danger today, that still leaves thousands of people dead, and he heard every single one of them die. In the storyline Superman, Peace on Earth, he tries to use his power to end world hunger. He works himself to the absolute bone, flying across the globe, delivering food, stopping wars, and the brutal reality crushes him. Because no matter how fast he flies, the noise of human suffering never stops. The guilt isn't just an emotion for a Kryptonian, it is a permanent, inescapable soundtrack playing in his head every second of every day. But you want to know what makes this a true psychological prison? It's what he has to do immediately after hearing all of that. So immediately after hearing thousands of people die that he couldn't save, what does Clark have to do? He has to sit in a cubicle and pretend to care about a sports article deadline. He has to take a bite of a donut that he doesn't even need to eat. Because remember, Kryptonian biology under a yellow sun means he doesn't need sustenance. He doesn't get hungry. He doesn't get thirsty. He doesn't even actually need to breathe oxygen the way we do. Every single time you see Clark Kent eating a meal, drinking a coffee, or pretending to be out of breath after running up a flight of stairs, he is LARPing. He's literally role-playing as a fragile human just to make the people around him feel comfortable. He is trapped in a 24/7 performance, masking his godhood so he doesn't terrify his own friends. But the performance isn't just exhausting, it's incredibly dangerous. In the Justice League Unlimited animated series, Superman gives what is now known as the cardboard world speech. He explains that living on Earth is like living in a world made of wet tissue paper. If he loses focus for a microsecond, if he accidentally squeezes a handshake too hard, if he zones out while giving Lois a hug, he breaks their bones, he crushes their spine. He has to constantly mathematically calculate the exact amount of restraint needed to open a door without ripping it off its hinges. He is an apex predator, forcing himself into the posture of prey, living in constant terror that he might accidentally kill the people he loves just by relaxing his muscles. True relaxation is completely impossible. But the absolute worst part about faking a human life isn't the daily performance. It's what happens when the people you're performing for start running out of time. See, the yellow sun doesn't just give a Kryptonian heat vision. It fuels their cells, it optimizes their DNA, it effectively stops them from aging. But it doesn't do a damn thing for the people they fight alongside. This is the ultimate biological torture of being Superman. You aren't just outliving your mortal friends, you are outliving the entire Justice League. If you read Mark Waid's masterpiece, Kingdom Come, you see the beginning of this tragedy. You watch Bruce Wayne's body finally break down, forced to wear an exoskeleton just to walk. You watch the Flash lose his humanity, becoming a blur of energy. You watch the greatest heroes of your generation become old, fragile, and eventually, they become statues in a museum. But Superman? He doesn't age the same way. The longer he stays under the sun, the stronger he gets. In the DC 1 Million storyline, we see Superman Prime. He has lived for tens of thousands of years. Everyone he ever loved is dust. The Justice League is a myth. Metropolis is gone. And he exiles himself to the center of the sun, sleeping for 15,000 years, completely and utterly alone. Because while your team dies off, the threats don't. Immortal monsters like Vandal Savage or Darkseid, they will still be there 1,000 years from now, and when they come back, you will be fighting them completely alone. The sun gives you absolute life, but it denies you the peace of death. You are an immortal weapon, forced to watch the entire DC universe turn to dust around you. So the next time you wish you had Kryptonian DNA, remember what you're actually asking for. You are asking for a brain that never shuts off, a guilt that never sleeps, a lifetime of pretending to be fragile in a world made of wet cardboard, and a front row seat to the death of the Justice League. It isn't a cheat code, it is the ultimate sacrifice in comic book history. Now, if you want me to break down why Batman's complete lack of powers is actually his most terrifying advantage, hit subscribe so you don't miss that deep dive. And let me know in the comments, knowing the absolute psychological torture, would you still take Superman's powers or would you pass? See you in the next one.